Hey, good evening. It's Thursday, September 22nd. Thanks so much for being here this evening, and welcome to Everyday Talk 24/7. Literally within the last half hour, the equinox occurred. If you're in the northern hemisphere, it's the fall equinox. If you're in the southern hemisphere, it's the spring equinox. The sun literally passed directly over the equator. Today we had almost exactly 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness. And now the sun is heading in the opposite direction. So for those of us in the northern hemisphere, things are going to get colder. For those of you in the southern hemisphere, things are going to get warmer. Just, again, part of God's wonderful plan. Just could have let the equinox pass without making reference to it. Just the way God keeps his promises to us. Same promise he made to Noah back in Genesis. The seasons will not end until God's finished with us. And that's our great hope. Last night we talked about depression and how it's impacting at least 1 in 10 adults in this country. Study done by Columbia University, and again, a number of other studies reflect that as well. But what caught my eye in that study was that while it's 1 in 10 adults are being impacted, 1 in 5 adolescents, teenagers, are being impacted by depression. And if you've done much reading in this whole area of depression, you'll find it very hard to come up with a particular definition that fits. But I think what we looked about last night, and the fact that we don't do well if we're not investing in God, not trusting him. Our bodies aren't designed to function that way. And I think maybe the one definition we can use of depression that fits is when people lose hope. That desire to do things, to be productive, to live, vanishes. See, you can still be sad and not be depressed. You can be discouraged and not be depressed. You can be in great pain and keep going and not be depressed. But if you lose hope, even if you appear fine on the outside, you're not. So look at our young folks, look at our youth. The thumbnail tonight depicts a young person without hope, except there they are looking at their screen, and you see that ghostly image reflecting back on them. They're without hope. And if we're going to reach our young people, if we're going to give them hope, we must be able to reach to them with the love of God. Now again, that sounds very cliche-ish because you've all heard that 1,000 times. I'm going to try and give you 3 specific reasons tonight, 3 different aspects of what it really means to show love so that we can give hope to our young people. And obviously to anyone who's got issues with depression. We all need this, but I'm just talking about young people tonight. But it applies across the board. This love is costly. Jesus says in 1 John, he says this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers, our sisters, our young people. See, this definition of love here is not about feelings and thoughts and what I enjoy. But Jesus Christ is the standard for what love is. And he did that by laying down his life. And we ought to lay down our lives for those that we care about, especially our young people. Okay, again, let's get specific. What does that mean? Here's the 3 things that I was telling you about. The first thing is we need to invest. We need to invest in them. Let them know that they matter to us. because they're creatures made in God's image. God has worth and purpose in them. But if they live in a performance-based world where they're evaluated whether they did this right or that right, and they feel unworthy because they're not doing something or they've messed up in some way, we need to invest in them, not with regard to what we're going to get back, but what we can give for God. A selfless investment. So that's the first thing. The second thing, when we invest, we're investing to know them. Figure out what they're about. See what their cool things are, what their uncool things are. To know where they hurt and where they don't hurt. You just can't walk up to somebody, as a teenager, and say, hey, tell me what's going on. You need to invest so that you can know. So I need to invest. I need to pour myself into them, let them know that they matter to me, so that I have the purpose of actually beginning to know them. Find out what their strengths and their weaknesses are, where their hurts are. What is the particular reason that they have no hope? What is it that drives them to the screens? Or perhaps abuse, substance abuse, or perhaps friendships that aren't good, or just maybe withdrawing and isolating away from everybody else. I'm investing in them so I can know those things. And then the third thing, after I've invested, after I've known them, and this is the hard one, but this is where Christ matters, I need to become vulnerable to them. I need to expose myself to being hurt by them. I need to expose myself to show them that I'm vulnerable before God. And if I can be vulnerable before God, I can be vulnerable before you. And then perhaps this young person begin to see, wait a minute, this person really cares about me. They've waded through the mess with me. They've invested time with me. And then they've gotten to know me without judgment, without, they're not approving necessarily I do, but they're not judging me. They really are doing this thing about trying to show the love of God to me, which kind of blows my way. And then they're exposing themselves to me. They're making themselves vulnerable to me. You see, when you do that, you show the mercy of God. And then you begin to give that young person a reason to hope. Something to turn to other than the screens and the existential world we live in where only the next thing matters. The next concert, the next activity, the next person, the next screen event, the next thing. We're living for the moment. That's what an existentialist is. They live for the moment. And what they do, and what our young people need to see is we're not going to be investing in them for the moment. We're investing in them for life. And we're going to become vulnerable to us. And we're going to allow them to hurt us so that we can show the mercy of Christ to them. That's how we begin to reach our young people, to restore hope. We love them by laying down our lives for them, and specifically what that looks like. I'm going to invest the energy to do that, and then when I have that opportunity, I'm going to really work at knowing them. And then once I've known them, I'm going to become vulnerable to them so that I can demonstrate to them the love and mercy that God has poured into me. I can show it to them. This is not caring about their sins. This is not ignoring their sin. This is addressing their sin in the only way it can possibly be addressed, by the merciful grace of God. That's the hope that our teenagers need. It's really the hope that all of us need. And because we don't have those things, that's why we're spiraling down in this vortex of depression. God has something better for us. Think that through. Those in your life, that your young people that may be struggling, where you see those depression setting in, invest in them, know them, become vulnerable to them. For the grace of God. And that's the thought for this night. Q&A Friday is tomorrow. Thanks so much for being here. Check us out everydaytalk247.com. If you haven't subscribed, turn on post notifications. The videos will come right to you. Again, it's such a huge blessing to be with you tonight. And the Lord bless you. And Lord willing, we'll talk to you tomorrow. You have a great evening. Bye-bye.